ngā mahi o Ngāti Pōporo Hui. Right. Thank you everybody for coming. Welcome to our Hapu. I don't think we've had one. We've had other hui, but this is the first one that we've had as a whole group because there's so many things to catch up on and to keep our whānau informed about what's happening. So thank you very much for making time out of your busy schedules to be here with us today. We'll hopefully make it, I can't make it short, but we painless, and it's about asking questions, it's about making sure that you understand and don't go away from here with any questions. If we can help it, we will try and answer them. So thank you very much for coming. We're going to sing Nukanoa as our waiata, and then I'm going to give our karakia. The Korongata Urupa, the triangle Whenua Trust, the golf course update on the Hawke's Regional Prison, Ngāti Pōporo Hui update from Waterways, unfortunately, Robert and James are here today, so we'll just do a brief update on their behalf. And the parties, if there are any questions that you might have. So without further ado, we're going to go through this one. Oh, sorry, before we do that, I just want to acknowledge, a couple of months ago we put out a journal saying that the Wero Trust people and the Nukanoa would sponsor 5 teams of 5 individuals who would like to participate in the Wero Challenge, which is tomorrow at the Māori Sports Park. And I think, how many people we've got?
We've got 2 teams, Luke Tihema, Peter Marekura and Duran Ormond, and the other team is Cleo Tihema, and the 2, Silla's got 2 daughters up here, Silla Marsh, and we've got 3 individuals. We had 4, but one's injured himself, Wade Hokianga So he's pulled out, so there's an opening, we've already paid for it, if anyone wants to do an individual, Stephen, no. And the other three doing the individual is Dwayne, Aya and Panita Davies.
Yeah. So that'll be, and...
You can still register tonight and tomorrow.
Yeah, and so that's what it is. There 500 swim inside the Olympic pool, 20k ride around the circuit which goes down Lyndhurst, Hapu, and then back down, what's that street? Elwood? No. And then back, and then a 5k run around the track around the outside. That's just to acknowledge, so we thought some of them might be here just to help with them. So, yeah, probably. So just a little update on the North Wharenui rebuild. And so we have just in the last 2 weeks engaged DGSE, I think the design group, Staples, something. And who are going to help us at the very least with this feasibility phase. And the feasibility phase is the master plan boundary, and the Wharenui concept design itself. And so that's the stable and the two local, or most recent projects that I've worked on is the Waimara upgrade and the Waimara rebuild. And so yesterday I started with land surveys. And so the two priorities for this part of the planning is the boundary. Is that we have to sort that out before we can get into any kind of planning within the boundary. And of course, we're going to the roads, etc. So it's taken a while to get here, and it's going to take a little while until we're try not to look back. But basically, what I mentioned, so for the master planning, so there's assessments over the next 2 weeks, identifying the remediation that they need to do to find the overall project, and this is expected to take 3 months from June to August, at which time they will present back to our AGM on the update and report going forward from there. So far, and it's not restricted to these groups, we started a working group last year to develop a brief to be able to give to prospective design groups around this whole project. And that group at the moment is myself, Elena Rose, Hapu, so that's that first stage, which is happening now, and open to others coming to that working group. So the design stage, which is September to February, so they'll develop the concept, so that we're building consents, and that's expected to take about 6 months. At which stage we apply for funding to be able to implement all of this. We'll go over this in a bit. Hopefully the government doesn't change things again, and we just got in before the feasibility funding was cut, and hopefully we will be in a position to be able to apply for implementation funding so that we can get in before that is. I haven't gone through the whole budget, but so that is expected to take 6 months. And then pending favourable outcome of that application, implementation phase in this actual build itself. And so, like I mentioned, we have 2 priorities, the boundary and the Wharenui. The Wharenui being the main one, but we need to address the boundary first. And so as you might already know, there's been a lot of creep, and it's been a little bit uncertain around the boundary spoke to DGSE around putting together a scope for this feasibility. Recommended that if they could incorporate a master plan of other things that we might do so that we don't do this study in isolation of anything else that we might want to do. So that's why it's called master planning. You know, whether it's other buildings, whether it's covering between Wharenui, the Whare Hapu and the Whare Kai, or whatever it is, or whether it's possibly a new Whare Kai or an extension to this. But those will be tacked in so that they can follow on as and when we want to pursue those. And then that phase, the building phase between 12 and 18 months they envisage, which means somewhere at the very earliest, the end of 27, possibly in 28, that we will have to be able to celebrate having Nukanoa open again. So that master planning phase, just to let you know, we got $48,000 from the feasibility. The maximum we could have applied for was 100K, but even when we were applying, there were far too many applications for the funding available, and so we were appreciative of what we were able to get. The scoping phase that they've quoted on is $59,000, but that doesn't include some things. It's in the red. Building consents, how the scope work in additional hours. The implementation, another story altogether. And I hope that most of that could come from DIA, but it's estimate based on what Wairiki and Waimara cost, somewhere between $3 and $4 million. And at some stage, the working group and others who would like to go and visit Waimara and just to have a look at what they've done and how they've worked, and maybe glean some learnings from how those Marae worked with DGSE and how we can learn and improve from that. So that's it. Any questions on that? It's taken a while to get moving, but we're starting to move. Yes.
Sorry, not a question, but
Yeah.
well done on starting it and getting it through fruition. Just like when you say boundaries, is it like boundaries, how where we can build, or like?
Oh no, the actual outline of the aggregated Korongata Urupa. So just i.e. You might have noticed there's a track that goes out there, and so we have whānau that are accessing the backland of some parts of our land where they're residing, but they don't have access from the front, so they're driving through them. It is, and we've got a lovely whānau along here who have, for one reason or another, developed wood piles and in a couple of cases, actual buildings that are on the land, and so there's lots of discussions to be had. But on the flip side, that exit road that goes out this way, actually that cuts across our neighbour's land. So there's a bit of give and take maybe here, but that's what I mean. There's a lot of mahi and hard talk, which is probably why we're going to be quite reliant on our trustee reps of those affected whānau to help broker some of those conversations and maybe start some of those conversations now so that they're aware that things are coming up. Yeah. Any other questions? No? Thank you. Okay. Our next take is the Korongata Urupa, so that's the Urupa from the chapel here, and I'm just going to invite the lady to come up and talk about it. And so those are the...
So we've been, as trustees, talking about Korongata Urupa for years. lack of governance and active leadership. And what I thought about when I was thinking about this was our strategic plan is our non-negotiable ideals and values. And number one here is kōtaitanga, united and collective. That's what the UPA is all about. It unites us as Whenua. Whenua relationships and connection. That's our UPA. Rangatiratanga, well, we do need, in Māori society, we do need leadership so that the hapu can follow. Manaakitanga, care and support. We do give care and support to our whanaunga that have joined and enriched our whānau. Kaitiakitanga, stewardship for our dead, for our ancestors. Respect for the whenua that is hallowed and been karakia, many karakia and tears of shed there and will continue. And wairoatanga, spirituality. So, after a couple of months ago, after the discussion, I invited, and I'd like them to come up, Auntie Donna, Hapu and Auntie Dawn, Onikawa. We went on a hipoi. Not a big one, but it was a good one. So, us three, we visited Matahiwi, Korongata, Pakiaka, and we went to Māori Cemetery. So, have you got the photo?
So that's the next position. Just like Korongata. No, I'm opposite, but that's the next photo on the right.
There it is. Okay, well, he's put, that's a partial view of, that's the Urupa, Korongata, but, so that's part of it, that's the wall adjacent to chapel, but also that wall, we're eyeing up for a memorial wall for cremation. And, it's going a bit fast, but, yeah, Tracy, you were really clever. So what he's done there is superimposed what the memorial wall would look like. And next, if you go down to Māori Cemetery, they've put a few up, but they've done a koru design and a foundation. So it has to have a foundation for it to sit on. And it's granite. It's all one-piece granite, so earthquakes, anything happen, it would still be standing. And each of those takes 2 full sets of ashes. And they have them at all the cemeteries throughout the country. I'd like to acknowledge at this time that it was Auntie Ella that came to our trustees, and her desire for the Karaka whānau is to be cremated. She worries about her 2 sons who are a bit koritaki, and she's got mokopuna, and herself, she's preparing for the next stage in her journey. And she wanted to do one, but she was going to put it wherever. That's where we've got no government, no trustees. So we looked, and I've got these 2 to say anything they'd like to say about that, why we selected that area, and what you think it would look like.
It just seems ideal to put it against the wall. Well, we know at this present moment there's no fence or anything that provides the good part of the rest of it. So we just felt it was more suitable to put it against the wall, and a bit of structure put around it, put a concrete pathway all the way from the wall down so it could be placed on top of it. And pretty much when we went to have a look at Manawa, lovely and clean, nicely presented, and we can do that for our group. They have seating there, and we could do that also, and it would just look magnificent.
Yeah, and low, native gardens, because they have really fancy design for their foundation. But Auntie always say, oh, we could have a little garden, a few seats so you can sit there and reflect. But that for that area, and on the wall, it's all facing east, like the rest. We noticed that, well, it's easy to notice, but at Korongata and in Korongata, all the bodies face east for sunrise. So that's why we are, normally they do two-sided, but in our wisdom we ask for a folk for one-sided, so it's all facing east. And there's a long wall. So potentially that one would have, it could have up to 54 and 2 in each of those memorial, whatever, is 2 sets of ashes. And you get a granite plaque and it's up to the whānau to put your own inscription on it. Right, but we would charge a fee to recover costs so we can keep extending on it if it is the need. Yeah, to maintain the what was the other thing on that agenda about it? Were you
Trusteeship.
Oh, yeah, well,
And the all ones and Waterways.
I'd like to turn the time, I'm going to put, the only distance.
What's the cost of that?
We haven't got a full costing, but it's very affordable. I rang council to get one of those, exactly like that, is $1,440 per slot. But that would be with the governance and the sanction of trustees to put a price, but it would be far more reasonable than council.
Yeah, just from what Elaine sent me yesterday, the approximate cost for that 27, but it is around 22,000, excluding the foundation base, which needs to be done to $70. But for one that's double that size, 54, is about 9,000 more. So there's some cost benefits if you do some of this.
Yeah. So I'm going to put her on the hotspot, but is Raylan here?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the only trustee present here today. So I'd like her to talk about the trustee.
About 25 years ago, and so our role as trustees there. So we were put as trustees of the Urupa, we were put as trustees of the marae, and it kind of we formatted like that. And so actually I thought that when the trustees changed here, it would change for the Urupa, but it didn't. So what we were doing actively there was just talking about kind of talk about the extension of the Urupa and who would be on it. But mainly our roles we were doing was like just seeing who was coming into our Urupa, who were the we were having fun, we were even from Ngāti Pōporo Hui very there. So those were, and so the trustees, me and Sabrina are the only surviving ones, so Auntie Hannah, all their all passed. And so as they all passed, was a visit in regards to whānau contacting us about who was to go on there and stuff like that. But pretty much that's trustees that I'm involved. And so I was getting calls from Ruth is, my thing is trustee, and I'm happy just to, but I just take over and just carry on, because it does need trustees to do things like this. So my last name was Sabrina.
The Cunningham whānau, that's Stevie Ray's part of my whānau, or I'm part of this whānau, I'm his auntie, so. But that's where part of our family is buried, and so is the Rāti whānau, and many others from Whakatū, and from the Hapu Ngāti Hui. And Ngāti Pōporo. On what they've got is they've landscaped it, and they've got trustees, and they've got a fence and a little hand basin that you can tapu noa, and they've got a sign up. I've got it on my card. I've got some of that. Mine's all valuable. Let's put my cards. You ready for this photos? Yeah. So the signage just says Te Paku Aka Māori Reserve for Te Whenua for Ngāti Hui. And they've got a gate, I guess, to keep stray animals out. And I heard from our Cunningham whānau that they're assigned once every 18 months, a month, to maintain the area. So that's pretty good, 18 months they have a month where they maintain the urupa, and it's really clean and tidy and no weeds. And the waharoa, they've got a lovely little waharoa. Kohu Pātiki, and in both cases, the fences are no higher than this, or this high. If you think about Hastings Cemetery, it's a big area, no fences. It's about us as a community keeping an eye on our sacred grounds and being, I guess, upholding the tikanga and kawa of that place, because we've all got a... Kukuwaraki's got a block wall that's no higher than this, and it's good to keep the animals and anything else out. It's very accessible. And yeah, so this and yes, I'm talking about a waharoa. Oh, so I've approached the church representative about, this was our auntie's visit, about putting a low wall, block wall, just like the one that's there now, from where it finishes right through to the far boundary. And our idea was a low wall with a waharoa in the middle, wide enough for a little bobcat to go through and pray, but not wide enough to allow trucks and utilities, utes to drive on it. And hopefully with the trustees too is to organise some sort of point of arrival before the waharoa and a pathway to go so that you can go a little tidily rather than crisscrossing over everyone. You know what I mean? So yeah, and with the church, they're open to a proposal because they're dealing governance to do it, rather than one here, two there doing it. So they're open to us putting in a new wall, and they may do it themselves for us. But I'm talking about where Urupa and their whenua. The other thing is that they're also open to considering more whenua for us. But once again, we've got to have our rationale clear, and they've got maps that they wanted to see visually, video of what we're talking about. But you know, all of this is reliant on those values that we have here in our strategic plan. We've got it there, why aren't we using it? Potahitanga, Whanaungatanga, Rangatiratanga, Manaakitanga, Kaitiakitanga, and Wairuatanga. Very important, not only to this marae, but to our Urupa. Any questions? Yeah, there it is. I mean, those trustees, I'd like trustees to talk to their trustees. See, this little sign here says, it's got the Ghostbuster no animals, and that's right, it's Noa, I mean it's Tapu. I went to my grandfather, or I call him Dad, Matt Whakamoe is very right, and they're very strict up there. And I like picking plants and growing cuttings, and my cousin was absolutely distressed that I wanted to take a piece of this plant and try and grow it because it's tapu. Anything in that Urupa is tapu. She doesn't smoke in there, she stood outside the gate, wouldn't take her cigarette in there. I went in there, admired this plant and broke a little piece off, and she asked me for it and washed it because I had removed it from the Urupa. That's how respectful they are to their dead and to their tikone. And I think another thing we need to sort out too is, I see Tatiana may have some items, but I understand from listening to Stan that when the Kershaw's owned the property adjacent to the Urupa, they extended it, and that's where a lot of our hapu whānau rest. Then we've had Cowan whānau extended too, but I think those things need to be sorted out formally, or else they may come back to bite those landowners, that landowner, because Dawn just went to Tangi last week, up at Manatuki, and this is how strategic and visionary Butch Kato is. He owns a block of land, it's ancestral land, and he applied to the Maori Land Court for a piece to be made a reservation for an Urupa. And last week, his companion, his wife, passed away, and it was all fenced, all legal, and his wife is the first one buried in that Urupa. And it just makes us think, you know, that's part of your responsibility and stewardship and rangatiratanga, is we talk about being Māori, but we have to, the most important thing to us besides he tangata, is our whenua, because from our whenua is our ancestry. If the Australians can acknowledge the original people, I think we can at least have the decency to acknowledge the original people from here too, which is Ngāti Pōporo.
This one?
Paris's dad built that. Just saying.
It's simple, but it's effective.
It's not simple.
No.
No, not the whakaroa, but the whole layout, Paris, is it's not overly, like you go to Waimarama, they've got a novel telling you, oh, it's good, they've got the history, but they also have a whole lot of points there as to what you can and can't do in their urupa. But that one is very simple, and I'm trying to see what that first one says, no consumption of alcohol, no dogs within the urupa, please take your rubbish with you, kia ora, trustees of the urupa. Simple.
Sorry, just, questions, and then, because I was doing that text stuff, I didn't actually get the actually put something to the full Māori trusteeship. No. Okay. So question first, and then we'll wrap around to some resolution.
I just had a question, like where it's going. I was told that there are other, like, graves somewhere, so I wonder whether it's been surveyed to see where other whānau might have been buried, like not just there, but like the whole area.
And certainly along the other side, we know that people were moved, and we don't know where that line is. I'm talking about the diagonal. So there's a bit of money to sort that side of it out, and then before we can move on to the things.
Well, we've got Steve. Where is it? But the other thing is that do we do an archaeological dig, or do we leave them resting places, you know?
What we've normally done over the years is that we've had quite a few. And colour care, respect, making sure the appropriate tikanga being followed. Got rods, and so those of you that don't know will know what I'm talking about. So I think it's just being respectful and making sure that we follow the process. I just got to thank you for the kōrero, totally what Rowan was saying about what we tried to do when we were on the trust, come under the one trust, so there's not multiple. And I just want to thank Rowan and Sabrina for their services, because they have been active, and they have been contacted over that period of time. Just want to make another comment. Our whānau, we virtually live at the urupa, in terms of the tikanga we follow and the things that we do there. Just had a comment around the cremation thing. Isn't it amazing how tikanga has evolved, eh? So it's about the evolution of tikanga, so I just want to acknowledge that. What I find hard to think is the fact that do the trustees want to be commercial? Because we're actually going to be charging people to either put the ashes there, put the plug up, we're going to charge. What we're going to be careful of is, well, not careful, but whānau is struggling. And there's a cost to that. No, hang on, you can talk after I've finished one like this. So, there was that. The thing about whakatū is that, they've moved to a model where you actually pay. So, is this going to be the first step to go toward? And you can say no now, but I just think those things need to be kind of discussed. Is that if we go to this model, what does that mean long term? And the other part is, we've spent more time talking about this than what we did about the marae and Nukanoa. So the living versus the dead. So I'm just working through the process and then thinking, why don't we just try to fundraise or look at alternatives to have this model? The other part around the waharo, well, Tracy and I can work on a process to get all of those carvings for waharo done, under the direction of the Hapu, at a prison or a correction for a lot of that money. So it's just about the cost-effective part of it, the cost for the whānau, And I think as you start to work through some of those things, you need to just look at that. And then the tikanga that you're going to set.
I think a lot of that, and that they're all valid, a lot of that, I think, the starting point is for us to actually sort out what that trusteeship looks like, and then we, as a hapu, put those people to task to help work through all of these things.
Oh, just because I'm just being honest, and I'll tell you now, like my muckles and my children, when they go down to visit their whānau, we do have a party down there. We crack open a bottle of grape juice and we go hard. So what I'm saying is that we'll follow that tikanga. So, you know, if the trustee's going to come up with this,
the trustees will be guided by the voice of the whānau. You mentioned it, and already in the last 5 years since being a trustee, our tikanga has evolved, and it will continue to evolve. You know, just, I mean, almost all traditional and historical tikanga comes from practical space first, and then it became tapu for whatever reason. And so, you know, how we approach is really up to, is balancing all of that so that it actually works. Tatiana had one more question, and then I think it would be good to put to the floor how we actually work through the trusteeship.
No response.
Okay,
Not a question, just that there has been a formal arrangement with the Green Funeral with France and Sabrina and 10 years ago, so that's all.
result.
Yeah, as Barney said, I don't know if it's tikanga that's involved, but when Auntie asked for a memorial walk, I followed Tairāwhiti tangihanga, and I would say that at least 60+% of Ngāti Pōporo are getting cremated. And I thought, wow, you know, that's happened there. In terms of the tikanga of eradicating wairuatanga and tapu loa, I think that's one that needs to happen. I'm totally with that. But getting back to that question about is the wall appropriate there? Unless you want to excavate, what I asked Stan is, Stan indicated to me that in one of his diggings, he may have found an architect's coffin. And I was hurt that that's happening all the time. Why I was hurt is that we should actually put those names somewhere. Even if you know, he described her coffin and that it was intact, it was heavy mahogany and it was there. But never marked it. I've spoken to other whānau that know where unmarked are, but I think somewhere we need to actually bring those names forward. If you're going to dig there and you find it, you've got to see if it has got a name on the coffin.
Can I just say something? I don't know whether this is the right place, but I'll just write the same one. Is just because there's no head markings where we all walk up the Urupa, there are like that part was the beginning of the Urupa, and there are a lot of bodies in that area. We as a family have some of ours on top of ours because we know they were there, and that's why it hasn't gone very deep. We know that they're there, but when one time they cleared that Urupa, and they bulldozed all of it, and in those days they had only wooden crosses for most of it. They didn't have, stone markers. And so a lot of those things got lost. The church did have, one time, a register. They knew where everybody was buried. When you went into the fire, it was marked that they knew where they were.
Because today I feel there's a lot of people go in there and say, well, my auntie was over here, my nanny's over here, and I want to put a stone there now. And some of them don't even know where their nanny was placed because they weren't here, but they know it's around here. So they're looking for spaces now, and they're just putting their markers there. And I feel for it because their markers originally were taken over. And I don't blame those who did it because it was just overrun with blackberries at that time. You couldn't find some of the redwood. So when they cleaned it and burnt it all off, a lot of those markers got displaced. And I'm already in the throes of just making what they call it, a flip, is it?
Yeah.
Just to let our father know who was buried in that family. We've made a start to do that already. We're not going to put it somewhere where we think they are. So we're just going to put one in front of our park beside us. Those of us who have gone already, we can just mark them and say, we know about farming and then. So, you know, when I think you're going to put it, I think that's a great idea, but I think we should maybe consider it. It's a bit too late to sort of do that sort of thing. Because you're going to put the concrete path over somebody. And we've been walking over them all this time. So never mind putting a real concrete marker. I think when you do that, that just stops who know their father is there and they want to be buried on top of it. Rather than just turn around and say, well, we'll put a concrete block over it and forget about those ones. Because one area is really full.
Well then, should we stop everybody going in there? Because we're burying on top of people now.
Yes, that's what I see, but I feel it's all right to walk over them rather than put a block of concrete over.
Well, you have this crematorium space, so you have a whakamomahara, and you get all the whānau to identify while some of they are there alive, who are the ones that are buried there that don't have anything. Then you have one whakamomahara monument, and you have all of those names put on it, because I agree with the neighbour. We're burying on them now, whether we like it or not, so it just might be an option to think about. So that you have one crematorium, one place there, you have a whakamomahara tia ngā mate o the Hapu, or Ngāti Pōporo Hui, and then you, the thing is, we've got to act now around some of those names, because very few would know who's where. Otherwise, what you're going to have is we're going to have monuments going up all over the place.
Can I just say something? My eldest brother was born in Gisborne and he died not long after my mother gave birth to him. And my mother didn't even get to see him, wrapped him, did cut hair after, and brought him all the way back here and buried him in the back of the chapel. And for years, by the time Mum and Dad finally came back here to live, they couldn't find him. In the Wero period, yes, the church did have a record. And Uncle Wero came to see my father and said, here was I don't know whatever happened to those papers, this is your son. And the church had marked him. And so, where the Māoris are, so that's where my father did come down and he put a plaque because the church had recorded them. But unfortunately, I don't know whatever happened to those papers. So, yeah, so that's how my parents found it. My father found it, my eldest brother, because the church had recorded it and they put it there. When I was trying to research my grandfather, my father's father, so my father was born in July and his father died in August. That was the flu epidemic. And my father was born in 1924. And I came up to see Māori and I sat and talked with him, and that's when your mother recorded it in the journals because I was trying to find what had happened to him. And he sent me to Hapu to speak to the old man.
was so glad to welcome me in, and he said, "You see that photo up there? That's my mother. She was a nurse, and your grandfather died in this house." So people were being separated at that time. So I found out quite a bit of history about the flu epidemic and what was happening. And he said he died in the night and they buried him in the night. It was never marked because of the health authorities would take a body, and our people back then were too scared that they would never get this back. Dave was telling me the story about what he knew. He said, because I know your granddad, I saw your grandfather. He was a child, but his mother was nursing him in the house in their family home. And he said, your grandfather died in this home. And then they took him in the dark and they buried him in the night. And he did tell me where he buried him. And I said, that's enough. So I was happy with that. And so, yes, like you say, there are lots of people being buried. I'm not sure that he's going to plant it, but it's enough for me to know he's there, and that's what happened to him at that time. And we have been looking for a family member, and yes, we dug up another, there was no coffin, there was the skull, part of it. And we said, what do we do? Go down and ask them on the pipe, because the body was down there. Dawn and I were actually cleaning out Dan's grave, because this person was trying to come close to it, and the grave did it come down a hole and said they found somewhere. And Uncle Tori came down. He said, it's all right, darling. Just cover him up. We'll have him here, and just go to the next spot, to the next side. And that's how he sort of thought. He said, we will come down there and we will have cut here and just tell him we're sorry for disturbing him and keep sleeping. And we just moved a little bit further to the right. And told the grave that it would be fine. And it was that respect. So they had cut here, they came down and did it. And then that was fine. He said, it will be all right.
Tracy, I think the big thing is to get a motion from the board about forming trusteeship and everything that's close to our heart, we can start.
Just a second part. Was there a name proposed for the
The Tanzanite,
well, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, Tigana is the forefront. Is there a name that I like for Tigana?
Korongata Urupa. And then he Urupa, Huinana. I'd like to put a motion on the...
One more question, three questions, and then we'll just, before Barney puts a motion on the floor, we'll just make sure that we include all the elements we need to talk about.
That's not really a question, Father. I'm just going to thank you, Father, for your kōrero. I'm looking at that wall now, and I can actually see on either side of the cremation wall, okay, two walls on either side, one wall on that side, one wall on that side, with acknowledging those graves that we cannot see. They have not been marked. Their names can be put on there, you know, and it's keeping everything together, you know. That's it, Father. We just have to work with it. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you. Just before we actually put a motion around the trusteeship, many a discussion and really arguments have happened in our trusteeship around who should be included in that trusteeship and who should be included in the student part. And whether, for a long time, we mentioned that the trusteeship went hand in hand with the trusteeship of the marae. But that's been a little bit of a contention. Is this Ngāti Pōporo, which includes everyone, not necessarily just those from Korongata Urupa. So just want to put that to the floor first, because that will impact what the trusteeship will look like. Any comments?
I just know that the Urupa is separating the entity to the Māori. So everybody knows that they are two separate entities. Right now, our trustees have governance over the Māori. So if you want the Māori trustees to have governance over both, what does that mean in terms of those entities? Are they still two separate entities with one governance over both, or do they become one entity? That is
Yeah, I accept that, but the thing is that this Korongata represents the interest of Ngāti Pōporo as a Hapu. And I think if you were to go to the Māori Land Court and say, based on an AGM that we've had, because the motion I was going to put forward was that we have the Māori trustees become the trustees over all of those affairs. Otherwise you do end up with a situation where you've got two separate things going on. So, before I put the motion forward, maybe you do want to have. Well, that's why I asked Wero, because they've been doing a great job. Do they want to stay on? Have we talked to Sabrina or Wero?
So back in November, Sabrina and Choppy were going to hold a trustee, Hui, who at that stage they were going to re-elect trustees. Because I'll talk to Sabrina, I haven't talked to Choppy, but Sabrina mentioned that they were both going to stand down and they were going to re-elect them. And we were going to have a Hui, a Hapu, the following week. What happened, I think it was the heat, something happened anyway, and it got cancelled. Yes, they got cancelled. And so we never had that conversation, which is why this is coming up now. Yeah.
So from an operations perspective, is it actually easier to have everything under the trustees? And I'm saying yes. And because I mean this is an AGM of the Hapu to talk about Hapu business in the field.
Sorry, just to clarify, it's not an AGM.
Oh,
it's not an AGM.
Sorry, but it's a Hapu.
Yeah, it's a Hapu. It's a Hapu. Yes,
it's a
Hapu. Yeah. There's one more, and then I've just got one more thing to add to yours.
Basically, you're talking about the tika. We go out for marriage and all of us, and all of the guys put the tika on, and I don't have to, that's talking about Korongata Urupa. You see how that?
Alright. So what is the tika? What's the current tika on?
Tracy,
Are you going to answer that question?
yeah, the basic thing is that we have got Pacific Island and they're letting us the old boys. But the basic thing is that is Korongata Urupa and it's the whenua or Ngāti Pōporo.
That's right.
And your question about embracing all the whānau that are in there, I say absolutely. Why Edwards is everybody is part of Korongata Urupa, which is the whenua of Ngāti Pōporo. That don't change, but the people that are going to care for it are the people that acknowledge that fact and are in there.
The only way you could work this is if this meeting put forward a motion and then that motion gets taken to the land court that you're going to amalgamate, but it would have to be Wero and Sabrina would have to agree to it because they're the current trustees. If they don't agree to it, we're wasting our time putting a motion forward. But if Wero and Sabrina agree to it and we put that forward as a motion, we go to the Māori Land Court and we say, we had a meeting on this day, the Hapu made the decision that we would have the Māori trustees oversee the affairs of the Urupa, and then the Māori would make a ruling on that, and that would tidy that up. Is that one word? So it's really Wero and Sabrina.
Yeah.
If they are in agreement, well then we put the motion forward. If they're not,
but we just need to tie up one question. The question that I asked before, is this open to everyone in Ngāti Pōporo, or are we, like Vani suggesting, keeping it as it is and moving it to the current trustees of Korongata Urupa?
You're talking about the local. Because Ireland and Thai, got a different story. People talk about Ireland
Ngāti Pōporo are synonymous
Yes.
with each other. So,
Yes, but what I'm saying is, so we've got the trustees of the marae,
Yep.
and yes, they also represent Ngāti Pōporo, but there has been comments that from other Ngāti Pōporo who don't feel represented from the marae trust.
Oh, look, I think the thing is that we've got to invite them to come to the meeting. We've got to create
That's
the
right, I just want to turn
opportunity.
to everybody. Because
You're the governments.
Yeah.
Just, this meeting has been advertised for over 2 months.
Yeah.
Any other members that wanted to be part of this
Part of what?
conversation would come. Because the partner we went out clearly with the agenda.
Right. No, I just want to make sure that we've covered it off and clarified.
And I'm saying that because we haven't set up a Ngāti Pōporo or Hapu Incorporated Society, if you want to. It doesn't exist, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, we want to tie this up soon. Yeah.
The thing is that Korongata Marae influence is wider than this meeting is. Korongata Marae influence is Korongata, which is a radius of 15 kilometres.
We just need to clarify that. I mean, before I came in, but certainly when I came in, we collapsed all our committees into one. So we didn't have a marae committee, we didn't have a Māori committee. It's become one. So it's a little bit, it's easier for us, but it's a little bit confusing when it comes to Hapu marae business. And just one more thing which will probably be an addendum to this, which hasn't come up yet, is the Triangle Whenua Trust deeds, which could possibly come into this motion, because Uncle, I'm not sure who else is still on that, Karen, and
Uncle Butch still on there?
yes, so it's a very similar thing that we haven't used, so either we can
I suggest you do it separately. Clearly, why you don't want that other discussion.
okay, well, fair enough.
Because the other thing is, the Urupa there is under the Māori Land Court, eh? The one on the corner is owned by council, so that's why it's...
Not quite that simple, but yes. Okay, well, okay, we do need to move on. Is there something new? Is it a new question or is it an answer? Okay, Anthea then Rose. Anthea then Rose.
Can I touch it? I just want to say I'm on the Waterways committee as a trustee, and so everything is under the trustee, the whole running of the marae, and we have subcommittees that go to the trustees, and everything that is the trustees' decision, but we make sure we listen to every subcommittee, every single person that comes to the meeting. You know, the attendance of the meeting is important. And we have a running roster throughout the whole year for the Urupa, and it runs every second weekend. We have a tea that puts up a whole calendar of the whole year, and you put your name in. And that's the weekend of the Urupa maintenance. Whether you do it fortnightly or monthly, it's up to the plan. And we have talked about Victorian War, and it's mainly based for those overseas that want to bring their whānau home. They've been overseas for years and years, but they want to bring their whānau home, and we're creating this war for them. And our put it all about that is because we only got a small Urupa, but we have whānau that have been living here years and years. And we are saving the space for those whānau that have been here forever and ever. And so those ones overseas that have been here 20, 30 years can still bring their whānau home.
So go Rose. Thank you.
So it's quite a good point that Barney addressed about having Hapu Ngāti Pōporo business. Is it fair to say that, because we're Korongata Urupa but we are not the only marae city, we've also got Nukanoa, okay, that we've got to consider. Yes, they've got to come together
Hoi Hapu. And then, so do we look at, should we be looking at maybe having an approach of having a Hapu or Ngāti Pōporo Council to deal with things on Ngāti Pōporo?
Well, I thought we had, before you mentioned that, I thought that the general consensus was that Korongata is the hub of Ngāti Pōporo.
Yeah, and
Right.
I mean, yeah,
I understand what you're saying.
the thing is, mana hō are Ngāti Pōporo.
Yes.
They are very much right there, buried in Korongata Urupa and everything else, but they are also Rāpungi Te Rangi, so that's Kei Te Pai. So no one's been excluded. It's not about excluding anyone, it's about being inclusive. But for the, why I see Korongata and Ngāti Pōporo synonymous with each other, because you represent those interests. And if they wanted to come here and be in this forum, they are more than welcome to come and be a part of the hui. You know, it's been inclusive, not exclusive.
No, that's good. We just, no, and the thing is, I mean, like I said at the beginning, if you go away from here and you haven't asked a question, well, then you're just going to moan to somebody. So you might as well do your moaning and get the first one here. If there's nothing else on the floor, do you want to say what your motion?
Oh, well, I was just trying to think of what their motion might be. Subject to Sabrina and Rowan agreeing to relinquish the, well, it's not even about that, I think it's a conversation with him. Otherwise, we're wasting our time putting a motion forward and then taking that to the Māori Land Court to have it come under one. So
Can I just say,
can I just say that,
yeah, I did my last conversation with cousin was that, yeah, just move on. And if that means for us to just let it go, that's fine. And that's what I'm prepared to do.
okay, so I'll put the motion forward that we someone give me this motion.
Trustees.
That the trustees, that the trustees for Korongata Urupa will oversee the Urupa
The governance of the
governance of
Korongata.
Korongata. Yeah.
We will change that to say that the trustees of the Korongata Urupa will assume responsibility and ownership of the Korongata Urupa land and its governance and operation.
Yeah, maybe stewardship.
Yeah, stewardship. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
That the Korongata Urupa trustees will assume responsibility and kaitiaki, whatever the word is, for the Korongata Urupa and governance.
Okay.
And governance.
Can I have a mover and a seconder? Mitch, move. And,
Oh, sorry, I put the
Barney,
motion.
Barney and Mitch, second. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, motion carried. Next controversy. Sorry. Okay, this is going to be much shorter. Just to answer Barney's comment at the very beginning, we talked about the Nukanoa rebuild every week since 2018. We've never talked about the Urupa, well, maybe once or twice now because the notion of trusteeship has come up. So it's good that we've got it and we've done it. Okay, just note that. Yeah, so that changes the whole motion.
No, that's
Oh, she abstained, okay. No, that's
just letting you know.
Yeah. Okay. The triangle whenua. I don't even know what the proper name for the whenua is, but we're calling it the triangle whenua. And And sorry, I haven't had a chance to catch up with Kathleen, but Kathleen, I'll put Kathleen in because she's done a lot of homework recently. Lots of people have done forever and ever, and it keeps changing. So just what we're going to do this, land status, HDC condition, and wetland reserve. That's all we're going to talk about. So this is a triangle land here, there's Nukanoa, Hapu. The land is this triangle bit here. These blocks belong to the Crown. Right? Easy? This block belongs to HPRC. Hawke's Bay Regional Council. These blocks belong to the Hastings District Council. You know that? Okay, so these now I'm guessing this was subdivided as...
Where's the road to?
I
said move upside down.
Sorry, Aerodrome. When I got these from Shay, it's from the LIMS reports. We assumed, and I think I heard that clearly. Shay Smith is one of the TTOH leads with Ngāti Pōporo Hui at Ngāti Incorporated. And Caudry and I have had discussions with Shay around this particular thing, but lots of things. Okay, so we're assuming that this land was divided this way because it was originally going to be housing or some kind of development, and this was going to be a road. However, the Wainahoos are the only ones that ever got in before that change. Right? That's the Wainahoo block there. Okay? So there was an east or some kind of easement through to join these lands. Anyway, so that's the Crown. Hawke's Bay Regional Council owned where the original road was going to go through. From where that off-road viewing... Yeah. Oh, it used to go through. We don't know what the actual status of... There's no road. Yeah. Okay, the Hawke's Bay Regional Council outright owned this land, and is it Jackson? That land? Yeah. And with that strip that goes through, I don't know why it's like that. So, lots of people have gone into these different entities over the years to try and sort out this issue. And most recently, Kathleen has gone and spoken to District Council, which is the only entity that we've been able to talk to so far. Okay, so the last discussion and report back from Kathleen was that the council were willing to give back that whenua, only for the intended use of the upa, which is why I think an application was way back when. Okay, so that's the condition, right? And at the moment we can only talk about this land because that's all that HDC can hand over. This is a map of cyclone. The white indicates where the water was the deepest. This is Bridge Park. Sorry, I'll see. Sorry, so this is this.
Which cyclone?
Okay, so this is that triangle whenua there, which you can see Te Awatearoa did its thing and went back to where it was, as with others. And so the whiter the colour, the deeper the water. Yeah. But as you can see, water came all the way through here, and we will experience the road. Sorry, it's not very clear, but that's just that triangle. Yeah. This next picture is an aerial shot post-cyclone. And the green circles show where water, water settles. what is here also came through, right through there, and that's the triangle block there. The conversations that we've had, Audrey and I, with Shay and Niall, that it's, and there's one more thing here, is when they tested the water in here in the cyclone, there was more sewage. And they traced it back to somewhere in the Aerodrome.
Explain that where that water was flowed across the road.
Yeah,
That's the
so
waste.
this is that bit where it was continuing and never really dried up. Was right across the road. So all that water was contaminated. And they traced it back to they still haven't, because Aerodrome has to agree to further testing. But that, plus the fact that this area is always going to be prone to flooding, and this is only their recommendation, they're not saying do this, suggestion that the whenua might be better used, converted into a wetland reserve or something like that, because rather than try and change it, which would have to, like, Tamoil that flooded. So they've had a plan in place since, ever since that was formed, their two solutions were to raise the whole land and thing marae or build up walls around it. So, because the land, like this land, is always going to be prone to flooding regardless. So our options were either we were going to fill it in, drain it, or go with how whenua is. But either way, they suggested that a new path, because of this issue and this issue, is not really as feasible as it
I think that that's a very subjective view from those employees. Because if you showed a map of Cyclone Gabriel, which is a one, and we hope it never happens again, there's that it was all over our properties. Woods, every time, it's darker over the woods than it is on, you know, and in my lifetime, I have, except for the spillover from those lakes, I have never seen that area under surface water ever. And if there's Auntie Elizabeth and Charlotte are older than me, they could vouch that we have never seen surface water except for that spillover. And if anything, we should be taking that issue to council or regional council about the aerodrome. Because the aerodrome is blocking everything. It's making wider settlement its influence, and it's stopping everything. We need to hold that. See how many buildings are
Tracy, I reckon the first thing is to get the land back into the ownership of the Hapu. I think the second thing is then the determination, because like Elena, my thoughts on that is, that water didn't stay around for that long. It didn't cover the whole paddock. It's a 1 in 100 year situation. The other thing is that if you were to put soak pits right in that lower corner, because it is obviously lower, soak pits and drainage this is the best draining land in the Hui. And I agree with Elena is that, and then a conversation with kind of council around helping us to determine, but first and foremost is get a put back in the,
So that's the conversation we've had with council. And if does anybody else have anything to add to that? That's the way we're going.
I disagree, because that is a hygiene issue. When it's a good heavy rain, that little bit still covers with water. And it takes ages to clear. So I think, but I agree that the aerodrome should be made accountable to check Why never?
Because they're bush there, Tracy. You got the red circle. All of those bushes along there. Yeah, that's the overflow from their septic. And what's happening is it's not soaking down, so that's a conversation with holding council, regional council, to account for that waste overflow.
So if it was on our side affecting them, all that jump.
Absolutely.
I have a suspicion because of the built dwellings on the airport side, there's no more stormwater runoff. And I suspect stormwater and it's angled towards there. So hence we need to work with the council about stormwater runoff and maybe put it back on the airport and surrounding properties for more on-site stormwater retention to avoid future flooding. I'm having that same result outside my house over here with the cubing, stormwater runoff, and it floods there and it takes ages for it to subside. It's the same issue.
Where are you past that? Okay, awesome. So all of this is also wrapped up in trustees who don't want to be here anymore. Uncle voiced this 5 AGMs ago, 6 AGMs ago, and we, and so did the others. I think Mickey. At that stage, I approached Mickey, Uncle, who was the other one? And Karen. Yeah. I didn't approach Glenn, but at that stage, as a result of that one, they were happy to, as with the and that trusteeship back to the current trustees of the provide. So that's another tucky, and then how we move forward with this can be told in that committee.
The beauty about putting it back to the marae is that we are accountable to everybody. Hapu is that everyone's in the room. That's the beauty of having a approach to the marae.
I think the other part of it is that it's one, it's fine for it to come back to the trustees, but two, we need more active subcommittees. Because the trustees are only 10 people, and half of us don't even reside in and so it's difficult to be able to move things along. And so, like Andy has said, it's really, really important for these subcommittees, especially if we're going to take on that big thing and that big thing, when we're already trying to focus on this big thing, as well as everything else that we're trying to do. Given that, it's not impossible, and like Elaine saying, it would help, if nothing else, tie the advocacy, governance, the communication into one port so that things are a little bit more consistent. Everybody form a motion? Same motion, just change the name?
No, I don't think you need a motion because the land, we don't no transfer, it's no, and presumably we talk about a trust. There's no formal trust arrangement here, rather than people say.
Or maybe just a motion that says all those that agree.
Yeah, say that.
Yeah, so it's less a motion, but there's some work to do first. And the conversation with HTC.
I heard a motion then, that the motion that the former trustees who are present here relinquish or hand over the issue to the Korongata Urupa trustees to continue work on how to gain the land and use it for the something like that.
Okay. Is that a formal motion?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a media move and Elaine a second. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. When you leave there, folks, what's the time? We're going to have I'm going to see it. Okay, golf course.
So, the guys had Whenua Hapu, and we've been crossing T's and dotting I's on everything to do with that development and has input with the developers about our concerns and what our issues are. This hearings for the submissions are happening on the 11th and 12th of June and may extend further. The developers tried to get the submissions suspended or postponed because there's a new law coming into being. But the head of the hearing submission has said it's going ahead. So, Korongata put in a written submission. We also gave the project a cultural impact assessment report that is confidential, that they can't share with anyone except for the purposes for which we wrote it. And we wrote a submission saying we wanted to be heard at the submitters hearing. Now, the main, what are they? Submitters is the Aerodrome. Everybody that flies over there has written a submission each, saying that it'll impact on their flight and they could crash their car, their planes over there, or that the residents there would start complaining about the noise. But that's all written in the proposal. There's a boundary where the Aerodrome is meant to contain their noise volumes, and they've taken that into consideration. The other big grouping that is against the submission is the car club. They don't want their car club activities curbed, and so they would like the car club to continue. Ones. And then there was the Blueberry setup saying that that's productive land, and one day when the golf course up there, it could be farmed. Well, it's been there 100 years, so being a golfer, we haven't any choices, so the land's hard to get. So, what are your questions regarding this?
Is that report able to go past whoever it is?
Pardon?
The report, is it able to go past whoever it is?
Cultural impact assessment?
Yeah.
Go past where?
Like, can it go outside of those conditions around?
No, because it's got a confidentiality on it. And the only ones that can release it is the Māori trustees.
That assessment has a lot, well, it's full of conditions. It's full of conditions that we have put in place. But yeah, we'll probably talk to individuals offline and have a look at that.
Yeah, Tracy, that would be good to see the recommendations from that CIO.
I think that,
What I was just going to say is, personally I'm not for or against development, but if the development takes place, I think a couple of positives that you might be able to see from this is one, there's a whole lot of strong teaching development happening here, and therefore that might have positive impacts on us on this side, and or it, I think, gives argument for us to say to the Aerodrome, your neighbour and major development is putting all of this strong retention and development. That basically saying we need to move in that direction as well. Therefore, that makes it positive for us. The other thing is that because I think generally speaking, my personal view is that the Aerodrome does try and limit development because even though they have specific flying areas, they want enough freedom to be able to develop and move and possibly expand in the future. That I think has a net negative impact on us because it limits our future development potential. But if the golf course is already developed and therefore set the precedent that the Aerodrome cannot stop development in the area, then it suggests that if we are successful at getting something like the triangle back, perhaps it could be used for housing development, like or sports, or a whole lot of things. So I think it opens up potential if this goes through. So there are some possibilities, even if we might have individual concerns about this.
I think the three big things you want to take away from this, and I think to Peter is first is culturally, they are acknowledging us as the mana whenua. And that dialogue is open and there's mutual respect. And that they're committed to involving us in the development in terms of naming the streams, the streets, whatever. I think the other important thing about acknowledging each other and having a relationship is that we're saying we're not only interested in carvings and putting pretty things around you. Everything you do, we want to say. Whether it's the flora, the fauna, the wai, sports, employment, social, we're in, roots and all. And so the relationship's there, and we're saying, and the relationship is interested in 101 things, not just 2%.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, because the other part of that is that our kids, our mokos and nipples should be able to benefit from that being there. Even to the point of scholarships, around, I won't say golf subscriptions, but,
Training's all there for them.
the related, yes. Exactly.
There are,
There's a lot of
yeah.
potential.
Okay, sorry. This one's a quick one, sorry. We're just going to go quickly over. So a lot has happened with the Pōkai Regional Prison over the last 2 years, 18 months, 2 years. So just quickly, Friday week ago we signed a tākai here with a relationship agreement with this site here, which is really just solidifying some of the money that we've been doing with them over the last 2 years. Okay, lots of things are happening. Innovate Group took over Whare. The original tono was that Ngāti Pōporo take over Whare, which is a reintegration outside the fence program, and that we were going to subcontract Innovate. The main reason for that is Korongata Urupa don't currently have the accreditation necessary to provide that kind of a service. Given that, we actually have signed an agreement with a contract for Te Uhuaka, which is a tikanga motivational program, which is a week-long module which is done once a month. And although we don't have that accreditation, they've given us a couple of years to get that going. At the moment, we've contracted Luke Tihima and Katie Hatton to facilitate and deliver that on our behalf. And so they're doing a great job. We've already completed 2 modules with huge success. And so that's going along well. There are...
Trace.
Yeah.
So the prison contracts the marae, and the marae contracts Luke and
Yes. Yeah. So we hold that contract to deliver that facilitating on our behalf. At the moment, like I said, the tono was we were going for the contract for Whare, and we were going to subcontract Innovate Group. In this instance, they've gone directly to Innovate Group as an accredited provider, and also the provider that's set up.
who is Innovate?
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Contracted Innovate directly as an accredited provider, but also the provider that was contracted from the beginning to co-design with corrections. I'm the contract holder at the time of choices, and we ran that for the first 3 years. So Innovate Group is myself and Tania Luskin are the 2 directors, and at the moment we're focusing more on social services, education, transition services based in Napier. But as a result of that history, Innovate was brought back into this space. The agreement that I have with my co-director is that Ngāti Pōporo is going to build up capacity over the next 2 years to take it over. The contract that Innovate has is for 2 years. Okay? And so this is all tied up with the tākai here agreement relationship
with some of the contracts that we've already been able to secure to be able to take on these and a few other projects. So if you are interested in the reintegration kindly, just send in your CV.
What do you call?
Sorry?
What's it called?
For reintegration worker, there is none. You don't have to be a social worker, you just have to be someone who can help people in the broader sense of reintegration, help them find employment, housing, education, make sure they're set up, just help reintegrate them so that when they actually get to leave, they're actually up and running rather than, just email me or message me. The other project that we're working on at the moment is Wero. So at the moment, healthcare, addiction, rehabilitation, psychology, and disability, and a few other things. They all come under the health services that are provided in the fence.
When you say we, is that Innovate or Ngāti Pōporo?
What's the question?
No,
No,
yeah,
you're
so,
saying we are
Ngāti
the
Pōporo.
high order. Who's we?
Ngāti Pōporo.
Everything I'm talking about, except for that explaining Innovate, is Ngāti Pōporo. Yeah. So Wero, we're working with corrections on the third pilot. So far been tested in Christchurch Women's and Tongariro. So these are the services that the health services within the fence provide. And now I'm going looking at Rongoā Māori, and that's the pilot, the third one. So part of that is at the moment Rumi, really, they say tuhunga, but I'm probably talking more about counselling sessions. And so myself, Alieta and Dwayne have been spearheading that on behalf of Korongata Urupa, and we're in the middle of trying to gather all our Rongoā specialists. At the moment it looks like 20 mini sessions per week, 1 2-hour talking session and then some admin. So this could be a pool of Rongoā specialists rather than one person taking role, because you still want to have your own practices and you may have expertise in different elements of them. And so that's coming up, and we're trying to gather as many people as possible. The agreement with this is that Ngāti Pōporo will have first pass at being able to populate these roles. Alright. So that's in motion. Testing starts over there probably in the next 6 weeks. Okay. Sorry, any questions on that? But just suffice to say there's a lot happening. And just to waiver, disclaimer. So everything that we're doing here, although we have a vendoring agreement to cover some hours, that anyone that goes in there to do some mahi in, as far as the relationship and some of these projects is covered by a vendoring agreement where they get an hourly rate. And what the marae does is we invoice, we keep 20% of that and 80% goes to the person who's gone to that mahi. Similar to, but unlike others who sit on standing committees, Te Haro, Pōkai Whenua, where they actually get a sitting fee, because everything that we do with the prison comes under this relationship. That's how we've decided to work it. But largely, all of that mahi, all of the stuff that you trustees do is voluntary. Yeah.
That 80%, are we clear with any revenue? So do those recipients invoice them?
They have to invoice them.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Before you carry on, and I say this at the trustee meetings as well, is that Tracy does a hell of a lot of work, and I'll acknowledge Uncle Barney, because every,
know if it's Tuesday at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm in the kitchen, I can hear them having their hui. Now, there's a lot of work that goes on. A lot of work. It's a person's full-time job, just this contract alone. So, why I was asking is, tell them who innovators and all of that stuff, is to protect him. Because it looks like he's wanting that work, but they're so busy, they don't want this work, they're taking it on because it's an opportunity for the marae.
Sorry, just clarify, I asked Tanya if we could take it on, and she didn't want it.
She did want it, but he's taking it on for us. And so, just want you to know, it's not normal for an assistant to get up and speak about your father, but he does a lot of work behind the scenes and in front of the scenes, and back door, front door, all that stuff. So, any help is appreciated.
Just add to that, just acknowledge Barney. I don't think half of this would happen if Barney wasn't. Thank you for that. And Ngāti who came in to Tōpō and Arieta to the Tākai Here signing on that Friday. Just going to skip this, so we're going to finish at 11 o'clock. I had to video Laura because she's on a plane going to Rarotonga. Nice result. However, this video is 20 minutes long. I want you to still read, but what we might do is skip to the last take and then play this during the kai. Because, no, actually, her stuff is actually really important because it clarifies, to me, it clarified a lot of miscommunication that's been out there around different things. And so it'd be nice, and I'll share it with anyone who wants a link to it, to watch it over, and happy to take questions. And Laura is happy to invite questions directly to her. But she covers the constitutional review, Kauranaki, the Tuki River catchment, her being on the, is it PAP? The Commissioner review regarding the quarry application, which is currently now still in court, and a few things, including, actually the three things that came out of the Constitution. So what I'll do is we'll skip to the next one and then just play it and I'll send it out. And then any questions?
Any questions later around this? Okay.
Yeah, to me or directly to Laura, but to me it would be fine.
I just want to make a comment really, and it's just that anyone that represents Ngāti Pōporo represents Ngāti Pōporo. So what that would mean is that the expectation, whether you sit on Tamati Pōkai Whenua, whether you sit on Te Tai Whenua Heretanga, whether you sit on a relationship with the prison and whatever, is that surely the mechanism is that you come back to the Hapu, and that it's a collective Hapu decision, not an individual decision. This is not about Laura, but I'm just sort of making that comment because I think it's too easy when we get into these some of these positions. We start to take on our own persona and when our own voice starts to come through. And then that's when you end up with a situation where the voice of the Hapu is actually lost as a collective. So it was just really a comment, especially if you're sitting on a multi-million-dollar group in your governance and I suppose Laura, she's the deputy. Hey, so there's governance responsibility there, but there's actually the voice of the Hapu that needs to. So it's just a comment, really. And I know that the trustees are onto it, but
yeah. So I just want to add to Barney's comment. So there is one clarification which I didn't understand fully before. So what Barney said certainly goes for any representative role, anyone, whether it's on the prison, golf course, te haro, Pōkai Whenua, wherever, that you carry the voice of the Hapu, not necessarily course, if it's complex, certainly not your own personal, yeah, it's a collective, it's the voice. However, and it's on the video, but I'll just quickly say it, the quarry thing, she was appointed as a commissioner. This is 5 seconds. That was a fast track consent, which meant that it was already approved. All that the EAP was doing was agreeing to or approving the conditions. They were put by anyone who submitted. And so that's what they did. Unfortunately, and because there was no communication between Laura at the time, and that because she was bound to confidentiality. And so there wasn't necessarily time, possibly it could have been take that hat off, take that hood off, it would become a potential conflict of interest. And so from that perspective, not fully understanding that the consenting process for fast track was actually approved already. They had no decision whether to deny that or not. They can't even take it to court. All they can do is make some agreement on the conditions that are put in place. So that's kind of the nutshell of that thing. And I know that a lot of questions revolve from that particular thing. But we'll play the video for after it is 20-something minutes long. So just quickly, and we'll come back to it. Just the Waterways, sorry, Robert Turner and Jane couldn't make it today. So just quickly, there are a couple of things happening. One of them has been a project again with Niall and Shay from the iwi around a joint Waterways monitoring project, and they got some funding to put together a monitoring station. Originally the station was going to go here, but cyclone happened and they also have the Waterways there now. So this is Wero and the Waterways. So what's going in here, they have since identified this piece of land here, which sits on Crown land. It's actually not anybody's sector. This is a section here that is Crown, and it's the highest point in this section of Hapu. Right? And they're suggesting. So the shop's here. The shop's here. There's a bin. The intention is to be a foot traffic bridge here, monitoring station, which is actually on the outside of the field. And also then there's access from both sides. So that's a monitoring station. At the moment, lots of people do, but at the moment, Robert Turner and the Morale Whānau do a lot of that money on behalf of Ngāti Pōporo Hui. So that's kind of a brief update. The other thing too is at the moment there's a submission in for the bolstering of the bridge part, the bridge on Nukanoa Road. That's a project run by the District Council, and there's a little bit of that which we have to sort out. So CIA report has gone into them. A joint CIA, merged CIA, cultural impact assessment by Laura, and combined with one that Hinamua and A.B. Robin did. So we just need to clear up some miscommunication here. But otherwise, that project is going forward. And all they're really going to do is, they're not actually going to do any construction, remedial works to the bridge itself, but more either side so that there's less impact on the environment around it. Sorry, not knowing a ton about that, but that's kind of the basic update for that. Any general part of it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, if you're interested in the environment in Ngāti Pōporo Hui, there's a free fish hook summit. It's at the War Memorial on the 11th of June. You just register by, I'll send it part of me on the comment I have already, but I'll do it again. It's free and it's awesome. You go there and learn about the environmental stuff, what's affecting our area could come up, because they do a lot of money on our area. So it's free and it's beautiful clothes and you
There's a couple of pānui, but we'll put that on.
And before I forget to, so also, and I've forgotten the exact date, but sometime early, or second week of June, I Matariki all the way through June and right through to the 6th of July, actually 30th of May to the 6th of July. But also HBR, the Hawke's Bay Regional Council with GoBus are reviewing the bus routes. And we've agreed to hold a consultation committee here. We'll send the pānui out as soon as we can, but it's not for another 3 years. It's the HBRC are reviewing the bus routes for Hawke's Bay. Bus, yeah. And including the net consultation possible putting on buses to bolster the school buses. Yeah, that came through the number. Any other pānui before we...
Someone's phone, I don't know who it was. Bob's the phone.
Oh, yeah.
That belongs to him.
Yeah, I'll put it on the table.
That's your one.
Okay, that's my phone.
It's already getting past
Oh yeah, sorry. Is it just Luke? Are you the only one doing iron to Wero tomorrow? That's you. We announced, Ruth announced the participants, but good luck on behalf of Oh yeah, the t-shirts in here. Last pānui from Tatiana.
Can the Māori trustees consider the Aerodrome on the agenda, not an immediate response, but for noise, fly zone, they keep reaching, and if anyone's got a tongue here, what they do on weekends is they have 8 planes coming in a row, and then they'll cycle around, and then they'll land, and then they'll take off. You can't hear, you actually can't hear if you're on the marae outside. I think it's something we need to work towards. They keep reaching. The fly zone, they fly over our house.
Vanessa is our Māori rep liaison with the Aerodrome.
So what's
And
the
we have a
process
new-
in Sarangi? You need Vanessa knowing she contacted
Yes.
Well,
We
here's
met
the problem
Vanessa.
with that. There's a problem with this current situation is that there's 3 or 4 different companies down there. And so,
We have a single liaison contact now.
but that liaison person says, oh, we've told these ones still have a scheduled thing. So it's still not in a good place.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we need a collective, strong approach to it. It's not immediate.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, it is current.
They fly over my home, and they're not allowed to, but they are.
Yeah. The funny thing is, when I was filming Laura yesterday, we stopped filming 20 times. Non-stop. And some of them were just flying around in a circle and then coming back to land. So it's a very valid concern. So just FYI, Terry Longley, yes, that Terry Longley is our new main contact for the Aerodrome.
Yeah, because with regards to that, I'd be really interested to know when did the flight path actually change?
It hasn't changed.
Because the old flight path used to be in the paddock in the middle. It was only in the paddock in the middle of like Nanny's house and Bell's house.
Yeah, so that's,
It's
yeah.
It's coming in now.
That's changed, but that'll be a tool for Vanessa and that working group to take on. So what we're going to do, what's that? It's coming. 6:30? No, 6 o'clock.
What
So
time
5:30.
What time can you speak if you want to practice?
White to practice Tuesday night
5:30.
and back on this Tuesday.
I'm straight from home.
Okay, 5:30 to 6:30, white to practice every fortnight here, starting this, not starting. Whenua video, and then we'll send it. No. No, we'll play the whole thing during it's all relevant and it's actually no. Yes, we know. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Laura Kāmau tōku ingoa, and I am your trustee for Tamatea Pōkai Whenua, which is our post-settlement entity for Heretaunga and Tamatea. Over this tenure, we have looked at the constitutional review that we done prior to the elections. During the election, we got you to look at three things for review. The first review was a single electorate. Prior to that was a rotating election. This allows the trust to save money in the election processes. Number two was the multi-electorates. Our whānau wanted to be able to vote in every marae that they whakapapa and hapu. And the third thing was the change of name. You did not want to be Heretaunga Tamatea Settlement Trust, and you voted on renaming and rebranding us as Tamatea Pōkai Whenua Trust. We immediately, through your constitutional change, you voted 97% for all those three changes. So immediately following those elections, we rebranded as Tamatea Pōkai Whenua Trust. So if you're a little bit confused about Heretaunga Tamatea Settlement Trust and Tamatea Pōkai Whenua Trust, now if you are confused between the Heretaunga Tamatea Settlement Trust and Tamatea Pōkai Whenua Trust, don't be. We are now known as Tamatea Pōkai Whenua Trust, as voted by you. The second thing that we've managed to execute is the single elections. Again, we've done that out of, hey, let's to stop the rotating and the high cost of elections. The third constitutional change that we are still trying to work through is multi-electorates. We still don't know how that would work and how the integrity of the voting system would occur. If you are sent a link or an email asking you to re-register, it's because of those purposes, in order to register yourself in every marae electorate that you belong to. Other updates. So as you know, we purchased 278 Stock Road around 5 years ago, and we also purchased what they called a deferred selection property, which was 49A Dundee Crescent. As you can see, all the work happening along the expressway, Wairatahi is now getting its infrastructure. So the infrastructure that you see being laid by the Tai Whenua or Heretaunga all the way to Dundee is the infrastructure for the 600 consented homes that we had through the fast track consenting process. Now, because of the cyclone and other housing initiatives out there, this work has been delayed somewhat. The Wairatahi. Yes. Okay, but due to the recovery and the rebuild following Cyclone Gabriel, that stage of work has been slowed right down. Now, what this has created is an impact on the resource consent, because your fast track consents only last for so long. We are currently in negotiations with Hastings District Council to get those resource consents extended so that we continue to build. We hope to build our first 25 homes in 12 months. Please keep an eye on that progress. We are still working out a way where the distribution or allocation of those homes is fair and equitable for our beneficiaries. The whole idea of the Wairatahi development is to enable our whānau into home ownership, and also to bring our whānau home to help us build our communities. Kia ora, and so another big item on our agenda for Tamatea Pōkai Whenua and for ngā hapu o Heretaunga Tamatea is the Tukituki Water Storage Project. At our recent board meeting, we voted to support the extension of the resource consents that were issued under the former scheme, the Ruataniwha Water Storage Scheme. Now, what I want to make clear to you whānau, that the Ruataniwha and the Tukituki are very separate projects. The Ruataniwha was focused on water irrigators, which meant that there was no water for municipal supply, nor was there a guarantee of water storage to help offset the current water takes out of the aquifer. The new proposed Tukituki Water Storage Project is actually framed itself on the Te Mana o Te Wai framework, given that was what all Hawke's Bay regional councils and Aotearoa as a whole had to work towards in terms of how we manage our fresh water. As you know, Korongata are the first to run out of water out of our groundwater out of Te Awa o Te Atua. What this project provides is a solution to our water insecurity. I was the lead of the working party to look at the previous resource consents and their conditions. The conditions that were put down for the Ruataniwha water storage were developed by Te Tai Whenua o Tamatea and agreed to by the mana whenua of that rohe. We took these conditions within the working party to see how they can be transferred or strengthened within the Tukituki Water Storage Project. As we all know, this project has also been referred to the fast track consenting, and I will speak a little bit later as to what fast track consenting and resource consenting with your local councils look like and why they're vastly different. The key point of any fast track projects, whānau, is that they're already consented, and the role of the panel is to set the conditions of the consent. We are looking at Tamatea Pōkai Whenua are looking at working with the applicants to ensure that the views, aspirations and acknowledgements of mana whenua are situated firmly within the water project itself. This will provide a solution, and it will provide 30% back into the Heretaunga aquifer, and it will remove or phase out all resource consent takes from the current aquifer and river systems of the Tukituki. Well, tēnā rā koutou katoa anō. So this part is about Tamatea Pōkai Whenua and the tendering purchase of Kahuranaki Station, which included our ancestral maunga, Kahuranaki. As you are well aware, Tamatea Pōkai Whenua tender was not accepted by the station owners. What has occurred is a little bit of a fight for the station. However, because it was a private property and it was a private tendering process, as a treaty organisation, we could not use the Waitangi Tribunal in order to take the maunga back. This is because this was tried in our negotiations for our settlement. It was supposed to be earmarked. However, what the negotiations process did do for our maunga is they put wāhi tapu in on the entire station. So what that means, whānau, is that they cannot drill, they cannot plant forestry, and they cannot do things that will implement the outstanding natural character of our maunga. Tamatea Pōkai Whenua are deeply disappointed that we did miss out on the tendering. However, there are some lessons to be learnt for us as a young organisation amongst the sea of our stronger voices and our stronger organisations out there. Tamati Pōkai Whenua will continue to represent your interests, whānau, as long as you come back to your marae where you will be informed. One thing that we do acknowledge as a young organisation is that we do need a proper communications plan on how these things go out. To be clear, whānau, if there's any purchasing of our taonga whenua, it will be Tamati Pōkai Whenua that will take the lead in any of the spaces within the Heratanga and Tamati Takiwa. When I say the Heratanga and Tamati Takiwa, from the Tūtai Kuri down to Porangahau. That is our takiwa for us to exercise our collective rangatiratanga whānau. Remember that 7 generations have already paid for the grievances that we've had. We, as your trust board, need to be able to make wise and prudent decisions going forward. Well, kia ora e te whānau. As you also know, we also have ownership of the Kāweka Ruahine forest, and within that forest we do have exclusive rights to hunting. These rights can only be exercised if you register with Tamati Pōkai Whenua tuatahi with your marae electorate, so Korongata, Ngāti Pōporo, and with the Tamati Pōkai Whenua Hunting Club. We are working towards what the hunting club looks like and how we can promote more health and safety in our forestries, whānau, because remember, it is a working forestry and it is a working dock site. So, whānau, if you are going into those forestries, please make sure that you've alerted the Tamati Pōkai Whenua Hunting Club so that they are aware that you are in those forestries. Well, as you know, whānau, elections will be up next year, and I am keen to run for another tender because there are a few legacy projects that I started with the whānau that I would like to see at least the infrastructure built or the projects are fully finished. I'm here to work for you, whānau, and when I am on that table, it's all about Korongata Marae and Ngāti Pōporo. There is no trustee that would tell you otherwise. However, when I am off the table, whānau, I am the Deputy Chair. Therefore, as the Deputy Chair of Tamati Pōkai Whenua, I do need to represent what the best interests of the Trust are and what we decided on the table. Kia ora, back for me. Kia ora whānau. I know there's been a lot of questions circulating around the Marae Kakaho Quarry and my role on that panel. Yeah. Well, tēnā rā koutou katoa e te whānau. I do know that there's been a lot of questions, a lot of doubts, a lot of concerns about my role that I played in consenting of the Marae Kakaho Quarry as a panel member. As you understand, whānau, this is actually in court at the moment. It's in the Court of Appeal, and the judge's decision is not due back until August. However, because my whānau are really concerned about what that means and what my role was, I'm here to address it, what the role of a hearings commissioner is. To be clear, whānau, there were 3 nominated in terms of an iwi representative to the panel. So I want to clear some things up around my role as a hearings commissioner appointed to the Marae Kakaho Quarry panel. There were 3 representatives put forth or nominated to Judge Nuhook, who made the appointment. I was appointed because I met all the criteria of the appointments process. The main reason I was appointed because I hold a current Making Good Decisions certificate, which allows me to sit on these panels. In this role, I'm independent. I'm independent, and I can only place conditions on what's presented to the panel. It's a very fast project, it's very fast tracked, which is why it's called a fast track. Now, just a couple of things to clear up. It was never going to be water storage whānau. It was never going to be a water storage application. When you submit on applications in the fast track, you've got to be submitting on what they've actually applied for. What the application was to dig, to quarry gravel. Now, currently, we have what they call global consents over our 3 rivers, over our 3 main rivers, and what that means is every gravel extracting company can just extract gravel out of the river by simply applying for a permit of Hastings District Council. The flooding told us that is not a sustainable thing. Although we need to mitigate some of that gravel around, it wasn't sustainable for our river systems. The tūpore or the Russell Roads or the applicants, the Gale whānau, sought to quarry from 2 points of the river. They wanted to quarry 2 large, deep pits that through the quarrying activities will fill up with water. What we did on the panel was manage to reduce the conditions of that consent to 1 pit that was the furthest from the Ngariroro. What we also did was assess whether confined and unconfined aquifer were according to your submission. We also were able to implement the conditions of the consent where mana whenua were at the table or are at the table from the beginning of the pre-work exercise right to its rehabilitation whānau. In those conditions, we also put in education programs, training and monitoring, whereby creating a little bit of employment for our community where we have the first right of refusal. As a leverage for our community, we could have leverage quite swiftly given the amount of infrastructure we need in place. It's no secret that our roads need building. It's no secret that we need to create infrastructure to get us out of the flood zones, to create the land and build it up. Those are the reasons why it went through the fast track, because it met the criteria. Create employment, add to the Hawke's Bay economy, and to be able to build industry, and that is why the fast track consent was there. Remember whānau, this was created by the Labour government, and now we're in a new government zone with the national government, who has essentially, your panel can only consider treaty settlements now. Okay. Because there is still some more confusion, in the fast track environment, once it's been approved by the minister, it's approved. It's consented whānau. It's a done deal, gone ahead. We can no longer take them back to court, we can only take them to court on legal fact. Unfortunately, as you know, we've just finished a big hikoi around the Treaty Principles Bill. There is no provision for the principles of te tiriti or Waitangi. There is no such legislation. The only piece of legislation is the Treaty of Waitangi 1975, and it is that we have to assess it on. Therefore, the principles of partnership, protection and participation, and that's all. When you are on these types of panels though, because you're dealing with mostly private developers, you can apply the conditions as a tiriti principle, which is what we tried to do for the Marae Kakoho panel. Now, if you were to look at the evidence that was presented, there's over 50,000 pages of evidence that was shuffled around. It was a large tranche of work. And of course I cried whānau. Of course I did. However, I could only apply the law. And as a panelist, you can only work towards the law. But of course, law is law, and so I tried to rubber band those conditions that would reflect more fully on the tiriti principles. If you are to read the consents, you will see that very clearly. Okay, now back to the differences between the fast track consenting process and what's the hot topic for us at the moment is the plan change for the golf course. Okay, here's the difference whānau. the plan change for the golf course in the application is not guaranteed. It's not a guaranteed consent. They still need to show the officers of the council that the consent is solid, and it needs to be supported by neighbours, the community, and largely Ngāti Pōporo. It needs to be consented by us. Even though we may have supported or may not, we put conditions in place for our support. It's a conditional support whānau. And it's up to them to fulfil those obligations, right? And the fast track, as I've already noted, is already consented before it comes to your commissioners. All we can do is ensure that the conditions of the consent are sound. Whereas in the resource consent or the plan change, it's a much longer process. As you may or may not be aware, but if the update is, the golf course has been working on this consent for almost 20 years. It got reduxed about 6 years ago when I was on the Korongata Urupa Trustees Board, and today it's still going on. So that's how long those types of resource consents take for projects such as plan changing and just general development that requires Hastings District Council resource consenting process. When we are dealing with the Hawke's Bay Regional Council consenting process, they only are able to consent on water takes and anything to do with the natural environment. So that's mainly your water takes and mainly drilling. But everything else kind of sits with the Hastings District Council. The Hastings District Council still has the power within their consenting process to overrule the panel and deny the application, or overrule the panel's recommendation and uphold the application. That is the power of the Hastings District Council, whereas the power of the fast track sits within central government. I hope that answers your questions, whānau, and please come and see me if you've got any concerns. Kia ora.
Go.